That was a good watch. I'll give this anime a 9 out of 10, then post a review about the O. Hey there, before you watch this anime, let me spoil it to you. Welcome to this board, the world of no game no life. Among all the animes I've watched over the years, this is by far one of the best in terms of art style. Madhouse Studios never ceases to amaze me. It's colorful, a mix of advanced and medieval times, and there was so much detail put into the scenery, that it makes you want to pause every few seconds just to look at things closely. This world has always been easy on the eyes, and that alone makes this show rewatchable. This story follows the antics of two siblings named Sara and Shiro. Together they somehow got themselves involved with a mad god named Ted, and playing his insane game. It all started when this god invited them online to play a round of chess. Surprisingly for an all-powerful being, it was a peaceful and polite match, until these siblings won. Ted's message seemed to be rude at first, but the relatability of our heroes skyrocketed after we see how life in the real world was not the best for them despite of their high intellect. Each and every time I look at the scene, it actually makes me tear. This is why entertainment and reality should not mix most of the time, but if it's unavoidable to do so, writers should damn well do their best to make it compelling. What the story did here in introducing these siblings was amazing. It was breathtaking to see how grand the world was when they were isekai'd into sport. I know that the avid audience has their gripes with the isekai genre, but just enjoy it for what it is, or else you'll run out of anime during these trying times. Despite Sara's evil look, we can already tell from the start as to what kind of person he is through his action. It's just a little unfortunate how their introduction was over-explaining as to what their capabilities were in terms of playing video games intelligently. So there's a mix of good and bad writing here, since it followed some aspects of show don't tell. The visuals may have compensated for it, but Sara's actions throughout the story redeemed it. The world that they got sucked into had rules, specifically 10 of them, but the most apparent one of them all, which sets the theme of the show, was that any and all disputes should be resolved by playing a game, and by game, it meant any game, board games, athletics, mind games, and later on in the final arc was video games. This sets a premise, wherein the goal is to play another game with Ted, but just like most RPGs they had to start from the bottom of the barrel. In this world there are 16 races, obviously humans were portrayed as the weakest among them all, so the majority of the season tackled on their adventures in the kingdom for humans. As a comedy, they never failed on making things fun and silly. Even though there's a rule against cheating, number 8, they still do so due to the clause of if ever you are caught. Not too long after, the consequences of having such a clause presented itself. The facade of such a peaceful world slowly broke throughout the show. Cheating became a necessity for all races. Instead of developing weapons of mass destruction, kingdoms and nations mastered the art of deception, either using conventional means or even magic. But against all odds our heroes would actually find out how everyone was cheating while winning the game fairly most of the time, even though they have the option to just win by default. Surprisingly, even though it's expected for them to win, the journey of getting there was still full of suspense, action, drama, and absurdities, which balances things out, and it makes the gravity of the stakes at hand even heavier once their opponents reveal their ill intent. Sure, there's a rule wherein bad stuff is not allowed. Murder is probably the obvious example, but unlike our protagonists, everyone else still has that memory before the reign of Ted. Most of them are war veterans. Their world may look like Adventure Time on psychedelics, and you know what? It probably is, and that is for another video. Let's just say that the war these 16 races waged against each other, literally torn the world to pieces. I think what this show has done so successfully is subversion. Unlike One Punch Man, we know that the monsters just explode. Our heroes here will always win, but how they win is a surprise. The solution may be stupid sometimes, but that's probably part of the comedy. Most of the time, however, the resolution leaves me in awe. When they won, and became king and queen, I fell in love with the show already. Using dating game mechanics in chess to turn the tides was funny. What made some critics puzzled was how they won in the end. It's easy to call out Deus Ex Machina in stories like this, but it's just unfortunate when references are not identified. It's not anyone's fault at this point, since it's not referencing something from the show's book and manga, but rather it's referencing pop culture at that time. Crusader Kings may second be a close reference as to how they won the game, and it's understandable that no everybody has even heard of it, but for those who did, the betrayal of the opponent's subjects made sense. You see, in this game you play as the ruler of your nation and the head of your dynasty, TLDR, you take care of everything in your kingdom, and sometimes when you screw up, your subjects will murder you in your sleep. In the middle of the show, the world slowly expands, and the lore and history of the kingdom is learned. Antics became plans to invade the nation of other races, as our heroes devise methods of winning every game. They also present the problems that they needed to solve along the way, and uncovered the mysteries of how everything came to be. Former antagonists became allies, and now they fight together against another foe as the stakes increase due to gambling their very lives, like putting all of your chips in poker. Although, it may seem cliché for them to befriend their enemies after defeating them, but unlike other shows wherein its characters pretend to be mortal enemies, the protagonists of this show's goal is actually to befriend all races. The video game part of the show was also a mixed bag for me. It's full of comedy due to the theme of the game, practically a mashup between Counter-Strike and Galgun. Probably more on the Galgun side. It's funny and all, but it couldn't top Gibbral's episode that was filled with a lot of random things, and the details were astonishing. Maybe the over-the-top comedy was intended for this arc, so that when things get serious, even physics becomes interesting to watch. The story ended on a major cliffhanger. All the characters were in one place discussing the conclusion of the arc and their plans for what is next and what to expect if ever there is a season 2, although, the best part was when they explained the moral of the story, and that was to remember to have fun. Now I know that the heaviest criticism is that our heroes are Mary Sue's. Yes they are. They never pretended to be other than that. It was already pointed out in rule number 1, no killings, so this isn't going to be like Berserk with all the gore and horrors of the medieval times, and ironically what most critics miss is the 10th rule, which is the overarching theme of the show, and it's to have fun. It's understandable that those who don't like it, won't even bother getting past 3 episodes, but sometimes when you give something a chance, you might like it. At that time of this anime's release, watching a movie, playing video games, were new job opportunities, full-time careers that become tiresome when done long enough. Having fun may be optional, and it's not always going to be fun when you try your best. That's why, for what it's worth, and this applies to now and even the future, try doing something you actually enjoy and have fun with it. Overall, the visuals were the best, the music could have been better, the soundtrack alone, without the story playing on the forefront, was actually not great. The plot, it was fun. Hopefully we'll get another season soon. Well, Jesus Christ, this was 6 years ago. To be fair, the movie was released 3 years ago, and if there's a pattern here then maybe 2020 is going to be the year. Oh no, wait, Corona chat. All gags aside, I hope you enjoyed No Game No Life with all of its shenanigans, and if you haven't watched it yet, I warned you, didn't I? Well, thanks for watching.